I'm going to get started talking about knowledge management. This is an area that I was interested in after I took this job about 1.5 years ago, because my predecessor, Laura Moon, had put a huge amount of effort into getting a new database up and running for Alumni Consulting Team, which turned out to be one of those giant ugly projects that finally got finished about 6 or 8 months into my tenure. And so once we had a good database of all of our projects going back to 1987 and all of our volunteers, and it's all very complex and interlinked, we could start thinking about the next step, which is how we can make knowledge that we have created over the years and accumulated available to all of you, so that both team members and leaders didn't feel as though they had to reinvent the wheel every time they started a new project. Because this is something I personally, as a volunteer, have been frustrated with a few times. I'll start a project, we'll be going into a client, and we'll think, I wonder how many other ACT projects have done exactly this thing, or practically this exact same project. Because the requests we get are not, there are not 1,000 different kinds of projects. Maybe there's a dozen or a dozen and a half, depending on how you define it, but there aren't an infinite number. And we have never been able in the past to share that past information in an easy fashion with each of you. We've had to dig through files and try to find a number for you to call and so forth. So that's what this effort was about. So the goal of the ACT knowledge management process has been to share the knowledge ACT has developed and accumulated over almost 20 years of consulting to nonprofits, and to make it widely available. So one of the ideas was we didn't want this to be seen as something only available to our alumni necessarily. It might be something clients would like to use. It might be something nonprofits who aren't clients would like to use if we're not able to help them, because we have lots of groups who come to us and we can't help them. So the preference was, and we have a board committee that's worked on this to make it widely available, and so we have ended up putting it, well, it's going live on Monday, and it will be public on our website as opposed to password protected. Interactive. We like the idea that people would be able to actually ask questions and not have it just be dead material, and I'll talk about how that's going to happen. And volunteer maintained, which is really necessary because you've seen the staff of the Alumni Consulting Team. Tamara's half-time, I'm 80%, Liz is full-time, but that's 2.25 or whatever that adds up to. And the business school's not about, I eke a few more dollars out of them every year, but we're not about to get some large staff. So any kind of infrastructure we put together really had to be set up to be pretty low cost, and therefore that means volunteer maintained. So that was the goal. This is what's happened so far, just the process. I put together a committee of my board about 1 year ago, and we started by surveying volunteers to find out what information would be helpful, first of all, what kind of information would be helpful to you, and how would people like to receive it, in what format, how did people like to get information. And the two things we found out were people liked getting information from other people, and they liked getting information online. Those are really what came out of it. But the people part was very important. So sending people off to a library or to a book or something came in pretty low. So, and when it came to the type of information, people said they really would love some kind of best practices, this kind of project, what are steps, that type of thing. So the design is structured and included online experts and best practice documents as part of it. I then started recruiting alumni to be those experts, and they wrote some best practice documents. And the piece that I left out here was we had to figure out what were the topics. What kind of projects do we typically do? Well, this took a lot of discussion. And you have a sheet in front of you, which I'll show you in a minute, is going to be the front page of our knowledge management site. And that's what we came up with so far. Then we hired web designers to add the content to the ACT website. So let me now go to that page. All right, so it's in front of you, but here it is online. This is the front page of what is going to go live on Monday as our new knowledge management piece of the ACT website. And what we've tried to do is think about what kinds of projects we do most frequently, are most popular, we're best at. We want to encourage clients to ask us for, all of those things. So there may be projects we've done, but we've only done them a couple times. There may be projects that we get asked for a lot, but for instance, anything to do with fundraising and so forth, we don't really feel that's our forte. Those kinds of projects we would not put up on this list. So what we started out with, and this has gone through several iterations, but this is a brand new thing, and so I'm sure it will go through several more, and all of your input is going to be very much appreciated. As I say, this is a new feature of our program. Please send comments or suggestions to me. So, strategic planning is probably about 50% of the requests we get have something to do with strategic planning. And so what we did was actually break it up into 3 sections, because organizations frequently come to us asking for strategic planning, and when I dig a little deeper, I learn, well, they're not totally sure what their mission is. So it's difficult and our project leaders find this out too when they go to do the sounding board. If an organization is not really sure what its mission is, that's sort of stage 1 of the internal piece of strategic planning. Second piece, market analysis, is that external piece. They may know what their mission is, but they may have no idea who else is out there in their market or in their field. They don't know who their competitors are. They don't know what their market is. And so that's another piece of strategic planning. And then strategic planning itself usually can take place once those first 2 pieces of information, the internal and the external, have been done, and they can actually look at what is their strategy going to be for getting to for getting, as Bridgespan calls it, their impact. So that's one piece. We then, another thing is, the second bit there is leadership, and we have decided to add executive coaching to one of the things we offer. We have a number of alums who do executive coaching, and it's something that we think we can offer, and that's more of a one-on-one thing. It's not a team approach. And we do get requests from organizations saying, I have a number, the assistant director came from, the service provision side, doesn't really have any management skills. Do you have somebody that could work with him or her over a 6 or 8 month period as a coach? And so we've added that. Board development is another area that we don't get asked for that often, but it's clearly something a lot of our organizations need once we get in there and talk to them. And so forth down this list. The ones that are hot links here are those that we have already found experts for. Those people have written the best practice document, and they're ready to go. The ones that are not hot links or live links are ones that we have not yet worked on. So for instance, marketing probably has more than just marketing strategy. There may be 2 or 3 categories in that. That's an area, I'm not a marketing person, it's an area that I haven't figured out yet, what exactly those categories should be, and I haven't found experts for that area yet. That's why it's not live yet. I've kind of gone with the things where I understood them better and I knew people who could be experts. So this is just the rollout. We're hoping that these other things will get filled in based on demand. So as clients or volunteers or leaders call me and say, why isn't that operation review live? I need that for my next project. Then I will start to get pressure to find an expert for that subject, and it will go live once that expert goes on there. So let me show you what's behind.
Why isn't that line done?
See, there we go. Also, up here where it says the active process, one of the things that came up was people not only wanted content for specific types of projects, but they also wanted advice on the process. We've tried to give that to you in the format of trainings like today. We've tried to give that to you in the handbook. This is just yet another way to try and convey information about how to make the process more successful. So let me show you some of our ACT experts and some of the documents that go along with them. So the person who is our ACT process expert is Cynthia Dye. She actually took the role of Leslie Chow in our last training. So this is she's one of our alumni. She's a very experienced project leader, and she put together a document on the process of doing an ACT project, which is right here. This is the format of things. Here's her bio, here's her contact information. I don't know if that's going to probably go away in a couple months and be replaced by something else, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But she put together, the overview. Here's the sounding board process. You can click on that to get more details on her view of how to make that process work well. And so there's each of the stages that we talked about today. And then there's a PDF version of it that you can print out if you want to print out that advice. You can go back to that front page, and then let's see, what do we have under, say, mission, vision, values, facilitation. Sharon Richmond is one of our alumni. She's our expert for that subject. She has put together this document. So, for instance, if you expand putting the pieces together, there's an outline she's put together of how to go through the process of doing a mission, vision, value facilitation with a client. Tips, hints and red flags, a case example that Sharon put together, and then we've also tried to have actual ACT projects. And here is, I don't actually want to click on this because I had a problem. I want to wait till Monday to make sure this is working. But the Point Reyes Bird Observatory, which John Richards was the leader for, this is an abstract of that project, which is a model ACT project where mission, vision, values were done. Eventually, this will not be a PDF. It will be a web page, and then from that link, you might be able to get to the final presentation that was given to PRBO, but there's a lot of work that needs to go into creating that because we have to cleanse those presentations so there's no private information in them that the client wouldn't want. So that's something that will take the next 6 to 12 months to do a lot of these abstracts and case examples. And then recommended reading, again, we'll hopefully make those into links eventually. So for each of these topics, we have people who are our experts. You may know some of them, and they have put together these documents. They are going to maintain them. They've signed a contract that they're willing to update them every 6 months to keep them fresh. And I think it's very exciting because now if you're doing a project like one of these, say a strategic planning project, you can go through, you can see these steps that are being suggested by this person, totally voluntary. If you don't want to use any of it, you don't have to. It's just there because it seems silly for us not to give you a head start on doing a project that we may have already done 20 or 30 or 40 of in the past. So that is what it looks like. Let's see if there's any other cost analysis. Ray Ting's one of our alums. He's put together a really terrific things with all sorts of definitions. We did a project for This Will Be Both Space and Science Center, which was actually a project I was on. Once it gets written up, should happen in the next few weeks. So that is what we are putting together now for knowledge management. Let me just tell you what the next steps are going to be. Clearly, we need to find more experts based on topic demand. Like I said, suggestions are welcome as to what you think we really should have that we don't have in the way of topics. Now, the next part is the interactive part. The magazine, the Stanford Social Innovation Review, and I'm sorry I didn't bring one for those of you who haven't seen it, already has a blog. But they are interested, in addition to the blog they have, which I can't remember what the topic is, having an Ask the Expert. And so we are cooperating with them on creating an interactive weblog with our experts, our ACT experts. So this is supposed to roll out in June, where anybody, either through our website or through the magazine's website, can go online and ask a question, a business, nonprofit-y business-related question, and it will then be directed to the proper expert who will then respond to the question, and both the questions and the answers will be available online on the blog, and it will be moderated. The SSIR will have a student or staff person who will get rid of any inappropriate questions and so forth. And then people will be able to, anybody will be able to go on and ask these experts questions. And at that time, we'll probably take off their specific contact information to make it easier for them. So that will be the interactive piece. And all of you can use it. Obviously, if you know the experts, or you can also get to them through the Stanford Business Directory, the Business School Directory. So those of you who are alums can get to those experts another way if you wanted to. And then the big piece of this project will be starting to create a data bank of our projects going forward. So as each of you are finishing your projects in the fall, we'll be asking you to write the abstracts for those projects. If they're successful, we're not going to put the, ones that we don't want people to know about on there. But for the projects that feel like they're model projects in any of these areas, we'll ask you to write up an abstract, and then it will become part of our abstract database. And I don't know how far back we're going to try to do that, but certainly going forward we will be doing that. And that way when you click on these, eventually there might be 6 projects listed for a particular type, and you can then access those. The other piece of this is that I mentioned earlier that our database, which has all of our projects in it and all of our volunteers, is now available for external search, which you can get to through our website. And eventually it would be nice to connect these two things so that after you read an abstract, you can then, it's already possible that you can then go into the external database and look at what's in the database. The hitch is that the actual material we have, the work plan and the final work product, is something we really can't release publicly until we do a lot of work on it to make it acceptable. So, questions, reactions? Yeah.
I'm curious whether anybody has used Wiki yet in a project, and whether or not you considered that as a potential way to kind of extend to the larger group for collaborative purposes some of the best practices from the experts. Clearly, you need point of view, and having a person associated with a best practice makes sense, not only as an editor, but for, to refresh it. But put a wiki with that same information under it with a wiki, which is essentially a fair use, collaborative, shared rights tool, and so you just write in and make comments about best practices, and we would all, it's more horizontal though, it wouldn't always have to be moderated, and you wouldn't have to, there's not such a large editorial component, so that we could just more share around that information, and it could be highly interactive, but also publishable on a secure part of the website. But we're just starting to use one of those in our project with our work plan and letting that kind of be informed by all the team members. I was wondering if anybody else has used that yet, or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a program? Is it a function? Is it web-based?
It's already out of groups now. There's a separate group that's kind of using Wiki, and essentially what it is, it's like you don't have to know HTML, and you basically just like word process, write stuff, and it automatically publishes it in a web page format. And it like Word with track changes and everything, it automatically records who's made a comment or who's made a change, when it was made, what the change was made to, what was taken out, what was put in. It just automatically does all that for you without having to like.
It's like a bulletin board that would be for any given. Yeah.
An interactive board.
Typical Silicon Valley. Somebody's always a step ahead. Yeah. Have not considered that.
Okay.
Absolutely open to it, but we're happy to be where we are even with this right now.
Well, it's low maintenance, and so it's completely volunteer.
I can tell you my only concern is that one of my goals with this was to keep it very brief and easy to use, so that people would not, it wouldn't be like referring somebody to a textbook or a long article. My goal was that each of these best practice documents would be maximum 2 pages, and some of them are 3 maybe. But they're pretty short because I have a very short attention span, and so when somebody tries to, and there's too much information in general, so I was trying to make it really easy to use. But you're right. People wouldn't have to go into it if they didn't want to. So that
and the other issue with that is search. A lot of this sounds like unstructured data. So, is it possible? Is there a search window for this that I can use to kind of find out this?
Yeah, that's another technology I haven't even gotten to yet. But those are both good suggestions.
I was just curious.
I'll put them in my queue.
And your name is?
That's Leek Little.
I'm sorry?
Leek Little. Thank you.
So, other questions or comments or suggestions or thoughts on the subjects we've chosen, on the way we're doing this, whether it seems like it's something you might use? Bravo! Yeah.